Welcome. Have you ever wondered why some leadership strategies stand the test of centuries, while others, well, they just completely crumble under pressure? Today, we're diving into a highly counterintuitive leadership secret, and it's a paradox that's been puzzling managers, executives, and even generals for generations. We're going to look at how our standard way of thinking about talent and team chemistry might actually be fundamentally flawed, and how shifting that perspective can unlock some truly massive organizational growth. Okay, I want you to think about this question for a second. Why is it that teams made up of the absolute smartest, most capable people often fail? It's a huge challenge to the common corporate assumption that, simply hiring top-tier talent guarantees success. We tend to operate under this illusion that if you just stack a room full of individual geniuses, victory is inevitable. But if you've ever watched a so-called all-star sports team totally fall apart, or seen a board of brilliant directors drive a company into the ground, you already know this isn't true. Talent alone is not the whole shebang. So, let's dive right into this explainer. Our roadmap today is the book Winning Strategies for Leaders, and specifically, we're zeroing in on Chapter 11. Think of this text as a comprehensive armory of tactics for anyone in charge of guiding a group of people. This particular chapter is entirely dedicated to one central mission: how to actually increase an organization's talent development power. It breaks down the true mechanics of growth, moving way past the superficial act of just gathering impressive resumes, and gets into how you cultivate an unstoppable, cohesive team. But before we can even touch the complex tactical side of team building, we absolutely have to start with a foundational mindset. The source material lays down this non-negotiable axiom: people will absolutely grow through education. Now, this isn't just a nice, fluffy motivational quote to slap on a break room poster. It's a structural prerequisite. Before any leadership strategy can work, a leader must hold this unwavering belief in human potential. If you don't genuinely believe your people can learn, adapt, and improve through continuous education, well, you're going to give up on them way too early. The whole strategy falls apart because it lacks that core engine of belief. Right, so with that unshakable belief firmly in place, how do we actually go about building the team? To really prove this talent paradox, we're taking a quick trip back to the Three Kingdoms era in ancient China. This was a time of brilliant military strategists, insanely complex politics, and honestly, what must have been an absolute nightmare for their HR departments. It gives us the perfect lens to contrast two very distinct leadership styles: the philosophy of simply gathering uniform talent versus the high art of strategic placement. And this historical showdown brilliantly illustrates our core paradox. On one side, we have the Zhuge Liang approach. He gathered highly capable, uniformly competent individuals. But because everyone thought the exact same way, they had massive blind spots, and his broader organizational goals ultimately failed. On the flip side, we have the Cao Cao approach. Cao Cao didn't just look for people who looked and thought exactly like him. No, he gathered a wide, sometimes messy variety of diverse talents. And crucially, he focused heavily on strategic placement. Because he embraced variety rather than uniform perfection, his organization absolutely thrived and dominated. Cao Cao's secret to power wasn't about having the highest average IQ in the room. It was all about recognizing diverse, varied talents and prioritizing perfect strategic placement. Putting the right person in the exact right role is infinitely more powerful than just having a room full of isolated geniuses who just end up stepping on each other's toes. The main goal here is to maximize the whole organization's strength. Cao Cao understood that a person with a very specific, maybe even narrow talent could be an absolute game changer if they were placed in the exact scenario where that specific talent was needed. So, if the blueprint for success is that clear, why don't modern organizations just copy it? Well, this brings us to the primary enemy that destroys the effective talent placement we just talked about. The text explicitly diagnoses this threat as a jealous culture. This is a toxic, stagnant organizational environment where people are, more focused on guarding their territory than actually collaborating. Envy completely stifles growth, it kills teamwork, and it rejects diverse talent. When people are busy being jealous of a colleague's unique skills or resentful of their strategic placement, the whole engine just grinds to a halt. Diverse talent literally cannot survive in an environment ruled by envy. Take a second to reflect on your own workplace, or maybe past teams you've been a part of. Do you see signs of this? People hoarding information, refusing to collaborate, or maybe quietly complaining when someone else gets recognized? The source material makes this incredibly clear. Eradicating this toxicity is the leader's primary duty. A leader must proactively, deliberately, and ruthlessly eliminate this petty jealousy to prevent organizational stagnation. You simply cannot foster those diverse talents necessary for the Cao Cao approach if the organizational soil is poisoned with envy. As a leader, you have to pull those weeds right by the root. So the crucial point is how we actually fix this. How do we move from a toxic environment to a thriving, powerful one? The text outlines a clear progression. First, you must actively reject and dismantle that stagnant, jealous culture, zero tolerance. Once the toxicity is gone, you can identify the strong genes. This means establishing a true meritocracy where real variability is recognized and elevated. And finally, you lock this in by establishing a permanent climate of fair evaluation. You have to build an organizational culture that rightfully evaluates and rewards those diverse talents, making absolutely sure everyone knows that real ability and actual contribution are what matter most. Which brings us to a final provocative thought for you to chew on. Is your team driven by hidden jealousy, or are you actively building a true meritocracy? The lessons from Chapter 11 of Winning Strategies for Leaders are just as applicable in today's corporate boardrooms as they were on ancient battlefields. Remember, education and human growth are absolute certainties, but only if you have the right culture and the strategic placement to actually support them. I challenge you to look closely at your team dynamics this week and ask yourself, are you truly maximizing everyone's unique strengths, or are you just hoarding talent? Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and keep learning.